So what a lovely, lovely movie.
Thank you.
How did you get involved with it originally?
I was sent the script, like the old days, and they had said that Jay Duplass had co-written it and was going to be in it.
Yep.
And I do adore Jay, and then I read the script and I loved it.
Yeah. And did you know Lynn Shelton, the director?
I did not.
And co-writer at all?
No, not at all.
And what was her style like on the set? I mean, the movie feels so kind of casual and offhand.
That's what it was. She is an actress also, which is always great because
Yes.
there's a sensibility that they get that other directors may not or may understand less. And they were both, Jay and Lynn, were so easy about things like the script when we'd go over things and we were unclear about like, well, I'm not sure if we can say that here because the audience doesn't know about this, whatever. And they would say, all right, you should probably mention something about so-and-so in that line or whatever, which can be terrifying if you're not anticipating it. But for me, I love it. I just love being given that freedom.
Yeah. And did you know Jay or just know of Jay previously?
No, we did Landline together.
Oh, right.
We were both in it, though we didn't have scenes together, or at least
Yeah.
I don't think we said anything to each other.
Yeah.
But we had a scene where we were both in a car. And I just thought he was charming and dear, kind, easy to get along with, all that stuff.
Yeah. And how did you develop this weird kind of chemistry that you have in the movie? I mean, you're kind of not really comfortable around each other for most of the film, but there's still a connection there. I mean, was that something that you just kind of pick up on the fly? Or?
Yeah. Jay has said the same, which I was pleased to discover, that I was thrilled to find out that we go about these things in very similar ways. Like, I'm not big on too much dialogue. I mean, to talk about when actors get together and talk about backstory and stuff, it really works for some people, not for me so much, and not for him, as it turns out. So we got on the set and we started running lines, and just kind of fell into this very easy thing.
Yeah. I got to ask about the sex scene.
Go on. I would have thought your parents had gotten to that first, but what do you need to know?
Well, I mean, it's a remarkable scene because it's shot all in one take, right?
Yeah.
So how many goes did you have at it?
I don't remember 4, 5, something like that. Yeah. And the beautiful thing is that there really doesn't need to be a ton of nudity in these things. You know, I mean, we all have enough imagination to not have to go there. And I loved that she was, she handled it all with great respect and all that.
Yeah. And Kaitlyn Dever, who plays your daughter, is a remarkable young actress.
I agree.
What was your dynamic like with her on the set? I mean,
she was also just lovely. She was lovely and well, mature beyond her years. And she's on a kids' TV show, like a popular one that's on like Nickelodeon or something. So she gets it. She, has the set etiquette down, and her dad came with her to the set all the time. I guess some age thing. You have to have a parent with you. And he was adorable. It was lovely. Everything about that experience, the experience of making that was really great.
Yeah. And you shot it in New York, right? Or
no, that was in Washington, above Seattle.
Washington. Okay.
Granite Falls.
Granite Falls. There you go.
Thank you.
And what was the atmosphere like up there? I mean, what?
Well, it really does rain all the time.
Yeah.
Which I guess for New York, it kind of puts you in this little like. Ugh. But I guess at a certain point you get used to it if that's what happens all the time up there. But it was me and a bunch of, people making an independent movie. It's such a familiar feeling for me. It's what I did for years. That's all I did for years.
Right.
And we all loved the script, and a lot of them knew each other and had worked together before. And we'd go home to this little bed and breakfast where we were all staying. It's the kind of thing I haven't done for years. I have kids, life changes, and my home life is here. But I decided I think it was 2 weeks I had to be there to just sort of go there and do only this thing for that period of time. And there is something to be said for that. It's really quite an insular experience where it's, we could get home to the place we were all staying and talk about the next day's scenes. And I still love that. I still love it like I did when I was in my 20s.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first thing that I noticed you in was a film called Laws of Gravity in 1992 with Nick Gomez.
Right.
I mean, did this feel like a similar kind of experience?
It actually does. It actually does. Except, with that, I was still, we would shoot all day and then go home at night. And it was my home, So there was something different about with this thing, going home to a place where all the actors were staying and all that. But yeah, exactly. Laws of Gravity was the same thing. We did a lot of guerrilla shots in that thing where we would just sort of get the camera and like run down the street and take some pictures and run, because there's certain legal things.
Right.
It was not, I don't think, a union thing. So we were working all hours, day and night, just to get this thing done. I don't know. Tremendous fun.
Yeah.
Tremendous fun. I love it.
Yeah. And you grew up on Long Island, correct?
Uh-huh.
And we've spoken a couple times before, a long time ago, and you were
I
telling
remember.
me... Yes, you don't remember, but you're a good actress.
Thank you.
That you were kind of a tomboy when you were a kid.
I was, yeah.
You were like beating kids up on the street.
I was. I'm embarrassed to say. I was raised up, I guess, around a lot of boys. I had 2 brothers and a sister, but there were a lot of boys who lived on the block, and we never had shoes on. I don't think from the age of like 3 to 15. We just ran around and climbed trees and rode bikes, and it was a real like lower middle class suburban upbringing, and I remember it with great fondness. But yeah, I was there was not a lot of girly stuff going on there for me.
Yeah. And how did that lead to then you becoming an actor?
Well, my mom was an actress when I was a kid. She did community theater stuff, and I used to go with her. I just thought it was, the most magical thing ever. She and the other grown-ups would put on costumes and makeup and parade around like other people, preposterous. But she loved it, and I adored going with her to rehearsals and to performances. And that's how it started. It really was like a band of gypsies,
Yeah.
And they started throwing me little parts in the plays and stuff like that. And that was the starting of it all. I was a teeny kid at that time.
And then you went to SUNY Purchase.
I went to SUNY Purchase, yeah.
A great school.
It is a great school.
And
cheap.
Studied.
Which was very important at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you started studying theater more professionally
yes.
at that point?
Yes. It was kind of the only time I ever studied it. It never occurred to me to go there for acting. It just seemed like such a weird thing to study. Like, I don't know. It just seemed like I had a teacher in high school who said to me, well, why don't you be an actress? I was like, what? What do you mean? I think famous people are actresses. I sort of thought I would always be doing it, but like my mom did, where she had a real job.
Yeah.
And then at night and on the weekends, she would do her plays. So the idea of studying it to be the only thing that you did I didn't quite get it.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I ended up going to Purchase and studying acting, for 4 years.
Did you think about doing anything else, or?
No. I was a little pig-headed about it.
Yeah?
First of all, it was the only thing I really, really, really clearly loved.
Yeah.
My own secret, private relationship I had with this thing. That nothing made me feel as good or as alive. And as far as I was concerned, I was just going to always do it. And there were times when it was really rough, working lots of side jobs and, getting kicked out of an apartment because you can't afford it, having to get something smaller, all that stuff. But it never changed my idea of what I was going to do. Mm-hmm. And nor did, if it had to be a play, on the 5th floor on 21st Street or something, I was always going to be doing something. And I don't think that ever wavered much.
Right. And then you started doing television.
Yeah.
Particularly with our mutual friend Tom Fontana.
That's right.
Who cast you on Homicide and on Oz.
That's right. Well, Tom Fontana saw Laws of Gravity, the aforementioned film, and was a big fan. And
I think Nick directed some episodes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And he told Nick Gomez and me and Paul Schulze, another actor from there, he started casting us in all his stuff like an angel, truly.
Yes.
And that's kind of how the TV thing started for me.
Yes. And I remember, you don't remember this, but I remember one time I was on the set of Oz, and you were there in your prison guard uniform. And I remember you saying to no one in particular, like, when am I going to get the role where I'm just the girl in the pretty dress?
Oh, my gosh.
And you said, like, I guess that's someone else's career, not mine.
Little foreshadowing there, I guess, yes. Yeah, no, I'm still not the girl in the pretty dress. And difference is I couldn't be happier about it now.
Yeah. What was it like shooting Oz? There was so many guys, so much testosterone.
I've always been, I had always been comfortable in a surrounding like that, like having a million brothers,
Yeah.
And for some reason, a lot of those guys, Lee Tergesen, Dean Winters, are really funny.
Yeah.
So they're, these tough guys with the tattoos, and J.K. Simmons and all
Yep,
those guys.
yep.
And the second we'd break, somebody was making a joke or laughing or playing a trick on somebody. So it was really, 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 really fun is what it was.
Yeah.
I was seriously outnumbered. But I was comfortable at the time in that environment.
And then HBO sort of came to you and said, well, we have this other show that we're interested in having you do.
I don't know. Yes, it was also for HBO, but I don't know if there was other crossover. Like none of them, I don't know if they knew of Oz or whatever. I don't know what the hell. But yeah, it was all of a sudden it was a lady in the pretty dress,
Yeah.
And they called me to audition for Sopranos, and I had already heard about it. Some friends of mine said there's a script. We always sort of talk to each other. There's this thing going around called Sopranos. I thought it was about singers. I was sure I wouldn't get called, And, in the midst of a busy day, I was shooting Oz later that day.
Yeah.
I went and did the audition, went home, and they called me, I think it was that night or the next morning, to say that I'd gotten this thing. I was shocking, really shocking.
Yeah. The last time I spoke with you, many years ago, was right before The Sopranos came out.
Okay.
And so you had shot it, but no one had seen it yet, so no one knew what it was going to be.
Uh-huh.
And something that you said to me that I have written down here is you said, growing up, all I thought was that if I can just act, I'd ask for nothing more, and I've got so much more. I have a home and a dog, Marley, I think was your dog, and you said this is a little too personal, but in the middle of the night I was crying because I'm so happy.
Oh.
And that was before The Sopranos even hit.
Yeah. Well, when they cast me in The Sopranos pilot, it was more money than I'd ever seen. And I was able to get a different apartment.
Yeah.
I had been in this teensy little place, and I was able to pay off my student loan, which had been dogging me. I was paying the minimum for years. And we all know how that turns out.
Yeah.
You end up paying like triple what you originally borrowed. That was a happiness I had until then not known. Yeah. So that was a very big deal at that time.
Yeah.
And that was before knowing what it may or may not turn into.
Right.
And when we shot the pilot, David Chase, who wrote and directed the pilot, I think, said, well, this was really fun. Unfortunately, no one's ever going to watch this thing, but we enjoyed ourselves, because that's the kind of guy he is.
Right.
And that was the way I felt about it, too. Was like, boy, that was great. So take care, everybody. And, we just you never know. You put something out there and you walk away because you just don't know what will become of it afterwards.
So then how do you handle it when it becomes, the greatest television show of all time?
Oh, that may have been one of the harder things to deal with, when you always see yourself as the underdog and you're struggling and working all these jobs and I just can't get a break, and then you get one and it messes with you.
Yeah.
You think it's what you always want until it's in front of you, and then you realize I don't know how to look at myself this way as a person who's actually supporting herself. I can't complain about all the stuff I used to complain about. All of a sudden, I have to pay my portion of the dinner check, all those things. Huge change.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that was, I don't come from money either. So all of that is it's a big shift in the way you self-identify.
Yeah.
So that was quite an adjustment.
Yeah.
To be recognized and stuff was a very big change from someone who just kind of enjoyed staying under the radar.
Yeah. It was also a very male-heavy show, but I mean...
Story of my life.
Well, Nurse Jackie had a few...
Well, yeah, that's right.
But was it a different kind of macho vibe on that set than the...
Yeah, it was. It was insofar as that it felt like home because I come from an Italian family, my dad's side of the family.
Yeah.
And so the Sunday meals were very familiar.
Yeah.
The sort of loud, brash personalities who you sort of love and hate at the same time, all of that felt like family.
Yeah.
Like home to me. And with the amount of time you spend with those actual individuals that you're shooting with, it becomes a family.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was different on Oz. It was I was out of my wheelhouse. I hadn't spent much time in prison previous to that. So since then, however.
Well, yeah, we won't get into it.
Best not to. But with Sopranos, it felt very familiar and home-like.
Yeah. But I read that you haven't really watched it, or you can't really watch it anymore. Is that true?
I never did while we were shooting it. I'd see little pieces of episodes, and there were a couple episodes I wasn't in very much that I made a point of watching.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends is Aida Turturro, who plays Janice Soprano, his sister. And she and I guess 2 summers ago, decided to sit down and watch it because there were a lot that we both hadn't seen. We got 4 episodes into the first season, and we were like, I just can't do it. It's too evocative, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like we couldn't separate ourselves enough from it. We remembered, oh my God, I remember that day, and it was raining, and so was in a bad mood, and also seeing Jimmy, who was young and vibrant, like all of us, just starting out, and excited and terrified, and all. It was just, we were watching this stuff where she was staying with me for a while, so we'd watch this and go to bed, and there was just no sleeping after that. It was just, we were like wiped out.
Yeah.
So we didn't get very far.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's really good. So you should watch it sometime.
I may just have to take your word for it, but thank you.
And it must have been scary then to try to top that, or try to follow it at least. I mean, you kind of moved into comedy a little bit more with 30 Rock before Nurse Jackie. But was that sort of the thought of like, I can't do another big drama, I've got to try something different because...
No, you know, I've never been able to do that thing. Like, you know, in order for my career to go like this, the next part should be, I don't know how to do that. I will never know how to do that. And I don't know that it would serve me. Maybe it serves other people. I really don't. I can't speak for anyone else. I've always just trusted my gut. I wanted to do Sopranos because I read it and it was smart and funny and I felt like I knew this woman. And then after that, I thought, well, I don't feel like being a mob wife for a while. And I would love something that takes a little less time in the hair and makeup chair in the morning. So they showed me a script for a nurse. I'm like, perfect. There you go. Yeah. She had, in the beginning, short hair, no hair and makeup stuff, you know, very simple, low maintenance, darker. It was just where I felt like going next. I thought the script was interesting and deep, and I was moved to want to spend some time there. That's all I was going on.
Mm-hmm. And what was the vibe like on the Nurse Jackie set? I mean, what was the sort of mood in general? And
also great. I have to say, I'm a bit of a control freak, so I loved being there all the time. Yeah. Like first scene in the morning and last scene at night, like, you know, opening the door in the morning and locking up at night almost. I just like to see everything that's going on. With Sopranos, like they would say, oh my God, it was so funny. We shot the scene yesterday where this happened. I would think, how come I wasn't there? Why didn't you call me, you know? But so I liked having a ton to do. I'm a bit of a workhorse that way. So, and I had a lot to do with casting, but also hiring the crew. Yeah. A lot of them were people I'd worked with before. It couldn't have been a more perfect work environment because of that. A lot of these people had been vetted already. Yeah. And you're there with them 14, 16 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's got to be people you can get along with. Ideally, the show will be good, but at a certain point, that almost became less important than enjoying the workday. Yeah, yeah. And you've also been doing theater on and off through this whole experience. I mean, I saw you in Sideman on Broadway many years ago, and you're going to be doing another play coming up that you may or may not be able to talk about. Who knows? It's never stopped me from talking about things before. What does that give you to sort of go back to the stage periodically between, you know, films and television? Again, I can't say I don't plan. I mean, I'm not planning like, well, I'd like to do 3 plays by the time, you know, I never know. Yeah. I just, you know, I get sent stuff and I read it. And if it's something that moves me, I will do it. And it doesn't matter if it's a play or a movie or a TV show, or whether it's a big one or a little one or independent or network or whatever. If it's a story that moves me with people that I am excited about working with, that's where I'll go next. And I don't think for a second I don't know what a luxury it is to have the option of these things. I surely didn't always. But I love doing all of those things. And I guess if I think about over the years, if I try to map the way things have gone, it's like I'll do one, then the other. I kind of bounce equal number of all of them. Yeah. Are you open to doing other long-form series? I know you did the Law & Order True Crime, which was kind of a closed-ended... Right. I love doing series television, so yeah, for sure. Yeah? Yeah, because I terribly love what I get to do, but it's a hard lifestyle, especially as you get older and I have kids and I have a life and stuff. Right, the idea of freelance, like never entirely knowing what's coming next and not sure how long you'll be at the set that day and all that, it's very... it's kind of, as a kid, you could like pack your bags and go to Bucharest to shoot a movie. You know, like I can't, even then I wasn't thrilled with it, but now it's like I can't, you know, I got my Pilates class, you know what I mean? Like I got stuff I got to do. Yeah. So doing a series on television is the closest thing to having a real job. True. Monday to Friday, you know more or less the hours, you know you'll be doing it until whatever, June. And that feels great to me inside. And also, I do love getting to know a character and just getting to be that character in lots of different circumstances. I love knowing the crew, the people. When you get to work in the morning, you already establish somewhat of a rapport, so that stuff's out of the way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things about it that really work for my personality.
Yeah. And your kids are starting to get a little bit older now, getting to be toward teenagers.
No, one of them is. Believe me.
How does that affect, your choices? I mean, do you feel more free to kind of make different choices, or
as far as the material,
or just the time commitment and being able to sort of
I don't know. I mean, it's always been challenging.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I haven't worked out of town.
Yeah.
So even when Sopranos, my son was born, I guess during Sopranos. Yeah. And so I would bring him to set.
Yeah.
And Nurse Jackie, they had their own room in the back of my little area. And they would come and they'd run to craft services and eating candy. And they knew everybody. My daughter, who was like this big, was yelling, action, which they thought would be funny to surprise me. And I was like, what? So they've always been around. But if it's not in New York, that can't happen because they are in school. They have lives of their own now.
Right.
So I kind of use them as an excuse for not wanting to work out of town, but the truth is I don't want to work out of town, period. It doesn't mean I won't, but I surely prefer to be here.
Yeah. I have a couple questions from the audience. Just wanted to run through here. One from Lisa Thornbloom. Do you have a favorite audition horror story you can share? So we can all be encouraged that rebounding is possible.
Oh, please. How much time do we have? There were many. I mean, there was one in particular. A guy called me and he wanted to be a manager, maybe. Tempting as it is to mention his name, I won't. However, I got in there and he was sitting behind a desk and he's like, he was doing something. He goes, all right, go ahead. And so there I was too. He was like writing or something. I started my monologue and the phone rang. And he picks it up. Hello. And he goes, go ahead, keep going. And there I was doing this monologue while the guy's on the phone. He hangs up the phone. At the end of it, I finished and I just sort of stood there. And he said, well, you looked like you were really into it. So just leave your resume or whatever. And it was just it was one of those times where I went home and thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And another time I went in for an audition for a musical. And I've never really considered myself a singer. I just thought I'd go for it. It was in the Equity Lounge when it was in a whole other place. I wore this blue dress and I went in. I tried to sing. It didn't go very well at all. It was awful. It was really awful. And afterwards, the accompanist kind of like ding, and then kind of looked at me like, how are you going to handle this? And I don't know. I said as I was like backing out. I said, it's really actually a beautiful song. Like if you know how to sing it, it's really, if you ever want to hear a recording of it or something, it's so good. Anyway, just lots and lots of those auditions.
Yeah.
Lots of them.
Two-part question from Jill. Is there a go-to thing or technique that you do to prepare for a role? And is there a go-to thing that you do to put yourself back in the moment just before the camera rolls?
Acting teachers, acting schools everywhere will hate that I say this, or if they care at all. I don't really. I don't know if I do any kind of research. I don't know what it is. It happens on some level below my intellectual one. I don't know how to research. I mean, I read the script. It's in my body then. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden I'll be, wandering through the streets and I'll find myself in a store I've never been in, and, or looking at a piece of clothing or a book or something that I might not have at another time. So I'm going to say that might be what I do. That's research. Beyond that, I don't know how to do it. It's a different part of my brain that I use for that. And the part of my brain that portrays these people is one without language, really, So I used to make myself crazy because I thought I was doing it wrong. And now I've decided whatever it is I'm doing, wrong or right, it's what I do. And so I no longer am as hard on myself about that. Something interesting for people who've gone to acting school, that smell is one of the strongest senses insofar as bringing yourself back to an emotional place. We did this in acting school, but the truth is it actually works, where we rehearsed a scene a bunch of times and I would do it with a certain perfume on. And when it came time to perform that scene again, you can put the perfume on and it is masterful insofar as bringing you back to where you need to be emotionally. I haven't done it in my professional life, but it was a fun thing to play with as a student.
Yeah. A couple questions that we ask everyone here, since it's the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Do you remember what role got you your SAG card?
Yeah. Well, no. Actually, the very first thing I did was a movie called Sweet Lorraine. I had to do it right after graduation. And they gave me the SAG waiver. What's it called? The Taft-Hartley thing.
Right.
And so whatever it is I did after that, I had to get my SAG card. But the idea of being Taft-Hartley'd on my SAG card, I just remember it being the most exciting thing that had ever happened to me. And my equity card I didn't get till 10, 15 years after that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a big deal to be a card-carrying union person.
Absolutely. And last question is there a piece of advice that you've gotten from another actor that really meant a lot to you that you can pass along to the actors here?
Paul Newman came backstage to see me at a play I had done once. And, when I regained my consciousness, he was chatting with me. And the one thing he said was, every time I finish a job, I am sure it is my last, that I will never work again. And he said, thus far, it has turned out not to be true. So he said, should this ever occur to you, you are probably wrong. And that has been, anything that happens to Paul Newman, I'm good with.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was a big one, because that will always plague you.
Yes.
Yeah, in the darkest afternoons. That that was my heyday.
Yes,
and it's over.
I think you're still on a roll, I would say.
Oh, I'm still loving it. I'll tell you that much.
This is a terrific movie, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
today.
you. It was my pleasure.
Edie Falco.
Thank you.